Mennonite Central Committee has been working to protect innocent people from cluster bombs for more than 30 years. MCC workers first encountered cluster bombs in central Vietnam in the early 1970s. But it was in the villages of northern Laos that MCC workers began meeting families who had suffered painful losses due to the cluster bombs in their fields, gardens, and village paths. A cluster munition consists of a large container which opens in mid-air and disperses hundreds of small bomblets that can cover an area the size of several football fields. Cluster bombs may be dropped from an airplane like a traditional bomb or fired from rockets and artillery shells. Bomblets come in many shapes and sizes. The bomblets usually explode on impact, sending sharp shards of metal flying through the air at ballistic speed. But in many cases, 10 to 30% of the bomblets fail to explode and can remain hidden in the soil or attract the curiosity of a child. U.S. Air Force records reveal that at least 260 million cluster bomblets were dropped on Laos between 1964 and 1973. For nearly 20 years, MCC searched for expertise and technology that would find and destroy the cluster bombs in Laos. MCC's experiments with a Bombi-beating tractor in 1980 and 1981 were not successful. Shovels imported by Quaker Service Laos and MCC were certainly a useful tool, but they did not destroy the bombs. In 1994, MCC, the Lao Ministry of Social Affairs, and the Mines Advisory Group began a bomb clearance program in Laos. Initially funded by MCC, the program grew rapidly, soon attracting the resources of governments and UN agencies. Today, clearance and education work continue in 9 Lao provinces, employing nearly 1,000 workers. With clearance work in Laos firmly established, MCC turned its attention to banning the production, use, and sale of cluster bombs. Cluster bomb containers littered the Lao countryside. Some contained the names of the U.S. companies that had produced them. For MCC workers Titus and Linda Peachy, the effort to ban the production of cluster bombs was a matter of personal and institutional integrity.
We worked in Laos for MCC from 1981 to 1985. And it was early in 1981, my first trip to Sin Quang province, which was a province that was heavily affected by the war. We were taken to visit a family that the day before, the mother had been killed while working in her garden. She was opening up a little plot of land, and while she was doing that, she struck a little cluster bomblet, or a bombi as they called them, and the resulting injuries meant that she died. And actually, this was the hoe that she was using, which they gave to us as an encouragement to tell her story and what had happened to them, and to do all that we could so that other families would not experience the same devastation.
When we returned to the U.S. then, with many stories like this in our minds and in our hearts, we began to do some research about where these bombs came from and who was producing them. We were living in Philadelphia at the time, and I was following up a reference to cluster bombs that I found in the Philadelphia Library. And it was an Aviation Week in Space Technology, and I remember turning the page, and there was a picture of a new type of cluster bomb, and under the photo was an inscription that said that this new type of cluster bomb was produced by ISC Technologies in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I about fell off my chair, because Lancaster is the home of MCC, it's the home of many Mennonites, the home of Linda's family, and it was where we were going to live and move. So it almost felt like you could connect the dots from the suffering and tragedy in Laos to our own economy and industry back here in the U.S. in our home community. And that just gave me a real sense of responsibility to not only work at clearing cluster bombs in Laos, which is very important, but to also work at advocacy in the U.S. so that the continued production of these things could be stopped, or else new families in additional countries we're going to be experiencing this same tragedy like the family in Laos that Linda visited that day.
MCC found concerned partners among the members of the international campaign to ban landmines. Even so, a campaign focused only on landmines and strong resistance by governments prevented any serious movement toward a ban on cluster bombs at that time. New wars in Kosovo, Afghanistan, Chechnya, and Iraq resulted in more cluster bomb casualties and deaths. In 2003, the Cluster Munition Coalition was formally launched at a meeting in The Hague, with MCC as a founding member. In the summer of 2006, Israel sent a devastating barrage of 4 million cluster bombs into southern Lebanon to attack Hezbollah fighters. Many civilians were injured and killed. MCC organized a cluster bomb speakers tour featuring participants from Laos and Lebanon, who toured the East Coast and Central States regions of the U.S. Norway initiated a treaty process in February of 2007 to ban cluster bombs causing unacceptable harm to civilians. By May of 2008, 107 countries gathered to formally draft a treaty text banning cluster bombs. Government leaders and campaigners came to these gatherings from every corner of the globe. Survivors of cluster bomb accidents addressed the government assembly, urging delegates to protect the lives of civilians, not the cluster bombs in their arsenals. The U.S. government did not participate in this treaty process, joining Israel, Russia, China, India, and Pakistan in abstaining. However, more than half the world's producers and users of cluster bombs agreed to a ban. Supporters believe the treaty will stigmatize cluster bombs and make it difficult for the U.S. and other countries to use them again in warfare. Just over 30 years have passed between the time MCC workers in Laos first encountered cluster bombs and MCC workers attended the formal treaty signing ceremony to ban cluster bombs in Oslo, Norway. During these years, a strong network of ordinary citizens committed to protecting civilians from the scourge of landmines and cluster bombs has been created. What was once a collection of individuals bound together by the harm they had endured is now becoming a community of hope.